What's going on, everybody? Today we've got 5 stories, but I'm not interested in covering these like 5 random news stories because when I look at all 5 together, I see something bigger happening. So, what we're going to talk about is why an investor who believes in your company might still refuse to invest in your next round, why experienced founders are showing up again inside Y Combinator, an open source project that lets AI agents actually live inside Slack, Teams, and other communication platforms. OpenAI reportedly preparing to move artificial intelligence off the screen and into physical hardware. And then we're going all the way to Texas, where Tesla and SpaceX are participating in an absolutely massive semiconductor manufacturing project. And the connecting theme is this: leverage, capital leverage, experience leverage, software leverage, AI leverage, and infrastructure leverage. So that's what technology businesses are becoming increasingly about. Not simply can you build something, but can you build a system where every advantage compounds the next advantage? And that's what founders need to understand. So let's get into it. Now, story number. I want to start with fundraising because I think founders misunderstand this constantly. So imagine somebody invests $100,000 into your company when it's valued at around $2 million. If that company eventually exits for $200 million, ignoring dilution and all the complications for a second, that early investment potentially has incredible return characteristics. Now imagine later you're valued at $10 million. The same fund has another $500,000 available. Should they automatically put all $500,000 into your company because they already believe in you? Not necessarily. And that's where founders need to stop taking investment decisions personally, because venture capital is math. The additional investment is coming in at a higher price, and therefore the company needs a substantially larger outcome for that second check to generate comparable returns. So the fund might look at your company and say, we love this founder and we love what they're building. We absolutely still believe in them, but we can put that $500,000 into 5 new $100,000 early stage bets instead. That's portfolio construction. Now, this is something I'm learning more and more as I operate companies. Founders think company, investors think portfolio. Those aren't the same thing. You might need this company to work. An investor might need 2 companies out of 20 to become monsters. That's an entirely different risk model, and founders should understand that before taking money. The question I'd ask an investor is, before taking, well, what would this company need to accomplish for you to participate in our next round? Now we're having a useful conversation. Do you need $1 million ARR, which is annual return or annual recurring revenue, certain customer growth, product market fit, enterprise contracts, another institutional investor, evaluation threshold, or technical milestones? Because now I understand your investment thesis once they tell me this. Now, here's an important exception. Imagine you're talking to a fund whose core business is Series A investing, and they make a tiny seed investment because they want early access. You grow, you hit the milestones, you reach Series A, and then that investor passes. Now I'm paying attention because that investor wasn't simply optimizing an early stage portfolio. They invested early specifically because they wanted visibility into companies that might eventually fit their Series A strategy. So their decision potentially contains information. That doesn't mean your company is not valid. Investors get things wrong constantly, but that's a different signal. Now, my question for founders is, would you prefer an investor who offers more money today, or a smaller check with a strong commitment to participate later if you hit agreed milestones? I'm increasingly interested in the second conversation because founders don't just need checks, we need alignment. Now, moving on, I want to talk about the return of the repeat founder. Let's talk Y Combinator. So we're seeing growing attention around founders going through YC after already building companies before. And I think this is fascinating because Silicon Valley loves the mythology of the 19-year-old kid dropping out of college and building $1 billion company. And obviously, that happens. But experience has value. YC itself has had numerous founders go through the program multiple times. Even the Collison brothers went through, the Collison brothers went through YC twice before Stripe became what it is today. And the YC founder accounts from people who have done programs multiple times, repeatedly emphasize something interesting. Even after you've built companies, you still benefit from community, feedback, distribution, customers, network, and people around you who are also building. Now, this is something we don't discuss enough. Imagine founder number one. First startup, they've never raised money, fired somebody, managed engineers, negotiated enterprise contracts, dealt with legal issues, managed runway, handled a production outage, pivoted, missed payroll or projections, built distribution, been rejected by investors. Now imagine founder number two. They've already lived through all of that. Maybe their first company even failed. Who's actually more dangerous the second time? Founder number two might have lost the company, but they didn't lose the experience. That's intellectual property living inside the founder. Now, I've built multiple products. I've experimented with different markets. Some ideas work, some ideas don't. Some turn into completely different opportunities, but every single build teaches you something. Architecture, customers, pricing, distribution, negotiation, sales and marketing, hiring, cloud infrastructure, AI operations. Your second company isn't actually starting at zero. Neither is your fifth. You are carrying the previous company's inside your decision making. Now, experience can also make founders arrogant. That's probably the biggest risk. The first time founder says, I don't know. The repeat founder sometimes says, I've seen this before. And that can be dangerous because maybe you haven't. Markets change, technology changes, customers change. AI is changing the cost of software development at an insane rate. A lesson that made perfect sense 5 years ago might be completely wrong today. So the repeat founder advantage isn't I know everything now. It's I know how little I actually know, and I know how to figure things out faster. And that's a much stronger founder. Now, my questions for you guys is, would you rather invest in a brilliant 21-year-old building their first company, or a 38-year-old founder whose previous company failed, but who understands the industry deeply? I'd probably ask what they built before I asked their age. Now, moving on to story number 3, we have an open source project that I came across called Channels SDK. Now, this is interesting because it represents where I think AI applications are heading. The concept is straightforward. You build an agent. Instead of forcing somebody to visit yet another website, yet another dashboard, or yet another chatbot, you bring that agent into the communication platform where people already work: Slack, Microsoft Teams, and eventually other channels. Now, the project connects AG UI compatible agents to these environments and supports things like understanding conversation context, streaming responses, calling tools, working with files, rendering interactive interfaces, and pausing before actions for human approval. That's important. Now, we've had Slack bots forever, and that's not what interests me. The interesting part is the convergence between conversation plus reasoning, plus tools, plus UI, plus execution. Traditional software says open Salesforce, open your dashboard, navigate somewhere, click something, fill out a form, submit it. Agentic software increasingly says handle this customer issue, and the software figures out which tool needs to execute. That is an interface shift. Now, this is one of my strongest beliefs about AI development. We've spent decades building software around windows, buttons, forms, navigation menus, dashboards, pages. And don't get me wrong, those aren't disappearing tomorrow. Visual interfaces are extremely useful, but AI introduces a second interface: intent. Instead of telling software how to do something, you tell it what outcome you want. And that's enormous. For example, imagine you're running a company inside Slack. You tell your operations agent, show me every customer account that has gone 7 days without a response and drop the follow-up. The agent queries the CRM, checks email, finds the accounts, calculates the inactivity, writes the responses, displays everything inside Slack, and then asks, approve sending these 14 messages. You click approve, done. That's different from a traditional SaaS. Now, here's where AI builders need discipline. I absolutely believe we're moving towards autonomous systems, but autonomous doesn't have to mean unsupervised. Those are different words. Now, give agents autonomy inside defined boundaries. Money transfer, approval. Delete production data, approval. Contact 10,000 customers, approval. Deploy something consequential, maybe approval. This is going to become one of the major architectural questions for AI companies. Where does the machine stop and the human begin? Channels SDK supporting human approval flows is exactly the kind of architecture I want to see. Would you rather use a separate AI application or have your AI agent live directly inside Slack, Teams, WhatsApp, or whatever software you're already using? I think the second model becomes massive. Now, let's see. So, OpenAI is where things get really interesting. So, recent reports say OpenAI and Jony Ives' hardware effort is working towards a screenless consumer AI device. Reports describe something around the size of a hockey puck or donut, portable, battery powered, no traditional display, potentially cameras, sensors, lights, and apparently even moving components intended to give the product more physical personality. Reports point toward 2027. Pricing reports vary, so I wouldn't treat the number as final. But forget price for a second. The form factor is what matters. Because right now, if you're OpenAI, somebody else controls the doorway to your customer. Apple controls the iPhone, Google controls the Android, Microsoft controls Windows, browsers control web access, app stores control distribution, operating systems control permissions, hardware companies control sensors. Now, that's strategically dangerous. If AI becomes the next major computing platform, why would the leading AI companies want to permanently remain an application inside somebody else's operating system? They won't. Think historically. IBM, Microsoft, Apple, Google, Meta, each era involved control over some combination of hardware, operating systems, interfaces, distribution, developer ecosystems. Now we're entering another fight. Who owns the AI interface? Is it your phone, your glasses, your earbuds, your car, a robot, a speaker, something clipped to your shirt, something we haven't invented yet? That's an enormous opportunity. We've spent decades staring at rectangles, laptop, phone, tablet, television, monitor, rectangle after rectangle, but an AI system doesn't necessarily need a screen. If the computer understands your voice, your environment, your calendar, your files, your messages, your location, your preferences, your ongoing projects, then interaction can become ambient. You say, remind me what Brandon said we needed to finish before Friday, and the computer understands the reference. That's fundamentally different, or that's a fundamentally different relationship with computing. Now, here's the dangerous part. The more context AI receives, the more useful it becomes, but also the more invasive it can become. A contextually aware device potentially knows where you are, who's around you, what's on your desk, what conversations you're having, what you bought, what you're planning, what you're worried about, what your habits are, and that's incredibly powerful and potentially incredibly dangerous. And so this category has a massive engineering responsibility attached to it. Permissions, encryption, local processing, data retention, authentication, user control, auditability. These aren't secondary features, they are the product. Now, would you put an always on OpenAI device inside your house? Yes, no, or only if most of the processing happened locally, because that third option is probably where I land. Now, we're going from something small enough to fit in your hand to something absolutely gigantic. Tesla and SpaceX are moving forward with the TerraFab semiconductor project in Grimes County, Texas. Recent reporting put the project's first phase at roughly $16.8 billion. Now, the proposed facility is enormous, around 100 million square feet, according to the current reporting. And it's designed around semiconductor manufacturing and advanced computing infrastructure. This isn't simply let's buy more GPUs. This is let's control the production capability underneath the AI economy. Now, for the last few years, everyone has been talking about AI models, ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, whatever comes next. But underneath every model, there's hardware, semiconductors, memory, networking, power, cooling, factories, supply chains, data centers, raw materials. AI looks like software when you're typing in ChatGPT. Underneath it, AI is extremely physical. Now, this is the part founders should study vertical integration. Now, Tesla needs enormous compute for autonomy, robotics, AI, manufacturing, simulation. SpaceX is moving aggressively into computing infrastructure as well. If compute becomes mission critical enough, eventually buying everything from somebody else becomes a strategic vulnerability. So what do vertically integrated companies do? They move deeper into the stack. Software company becomes hardware company becomes chip designer becomes manufacturer. Manufacturer becomes energy operator, and everything starts conversion. Now, this is almost the opposite of the startup model. Startups are usually told, don't build the infrastructure, rent it, use AWS, use Stripe, use APIs, use existing models, move fast. And that's correct when you're small, but eventually at extreme scale, the equation flips. Your AWS build becomes somebody else's margin, your API provider becomes your dependency, and your chip supplier becomes your bottleneck. Your cloud vendor controls your economics, so companies eventually ask which layer of our dependency stack is strategic enough that we should own it. That's a very sophisticated business question. Now, a startup should not copy Tesla here, and I want to make that extremely clear. If you're three people building an AI startup, please don't hear this and decide we need a semiconductor factory. No. Use the API, ship the product, get customers, make money. Vertical integration becomes rational when dependency costs or strategic risk exceed the benefits of outsourcing. Tesla scale economics are not seed stage economics. That's actually the same lesson we started this entire live stream with. Different stages require different capital decisions. Now, look at what just happened. Story number one, you have an investor optimizes capital based on returns. Story number two, a repeat founder compounds experience. Story number three, AI agents gain leverage by entering existing distribution channels. Story number four, OpenAI potentially gains leverage by owning hardware. Story number five, Tesla and SpaceX gain leverage by moving deeper into computing infrastructure. Now, it's all the same in principle. Compounding control. The strongest technology companies eventually control more of whatever is strategic to their future. Founders need to identify what their strategic layer actually is. Maybe yours is proprietary data, distribution, customer relationships, workflow integrations, infrastructure, brand, intellectual property, manufacturing, community, regulatory approvals, hardware. You don't need all of them, but you better understand which ones or which one becomes your moat. Now, the AI founder of the future is going to operate with ridiculous leverage. Now, I can research industries, prototype applications, write code, analyze documentation, generate marketing materials, create sales collateral, process data, build simulations, draft contracts for review, create video assets, analyze customer feedback, and automate operational workflows using tools that barely existed a few years ago. That means the minimum number of humans required to build a serious technology company is falling. Now, that's going to create companies that look completely abnormal by historical standards. $10 million companies with 15 employees, $100 million companies with 40 employees, maybe billion-dollar companies with shockingly small teams. But capital still matters, and Terafab demonstrates the other side. Software is becoming cheaper to create. Physical infrastructure isn't. You can prototype an AI SaaS product over a weekend. You cannot prototype a semiconductor manufacturing ecosystem over a weekend. So we're simultaneously creating ultra capital light software businesses and ultra capital heavy infrastructure businesses. AI is pushing both extremes, and that's fascinating. Now, this is why I want to be a builder during this era. I'm not trying to predict every company that wins. Nobody can. I'm trying to position myself so that technological change itself becomes an advantage. That's different. Learn AI, learn software, learn business, learn sales, learn capital, learn infrastructure, build repeatedly, and every project adds another layer. That's why I like to repeat founder stories so much. Your first project doesn't need to become Apple. Your first company doesn't need to become Tesla. Build something, ship it, sell it, break something, fix it, lose a customer, win a customer, negotiate something, deploy something, make mistakes, because eventually you stop simply accumulating projects and you start accumulating founder judgment, and founder judgment compounds. Now, I'm leaving you guys with 5 questions tonight. So, number one, if your seed investor doesn't follow on, do you consider that a red flag? Would you bet on an experienced repeat founder over a first time founder? Number three, do you think traditional software dashboards eventually get replaced by AI agents? Number four, would you allow an always aware AI device inside your home? And finally, number five, what is the one layer of your business that you absolutely cannot afford for somebody else to control? Because that's probably where your moat needs to start. I'm Eugene, software engineer, tech founder, entrepreneur, and I'm documenting what it actually looks like to build companies while AI completely changes the rules around us. So we're talking artificial intelligence, software engineering, autonomous systems, startups and capital, emerging technology, and most importantly, actually building through the transition. So if that's your world, subscribe, because we're not here to just consume tech news. We're trying to understand where the opportunities are before everyone else does. Execute, learn, compound, build.